Greetings, comrades. It's a few days late, but we are back with more Capital. We are on chapter 24, the last three sections of chapter 24. Section 3, the separation of surplus value into capital and revenue / abstinence theory. So section 3, we're basically talking about surplus value, how it supplies the consumption of the capitalist and funds his accumulation. So basically that means that either the capitalist is spending this money or he's reinvesting it into the company, right? Talking about how the capitalist gets rich at the rate that he squeezes out the labor power of others and forces abstinence of pleasure from the laborer. So this abstinence of pleasure, we're just talking about not being able to afford things, essentially. And that's what the capitalist does to the worker, right? In the form of taking that surplus value, that profit from the back of the laborer. We're talking about accumulation for accumulation's sake and production for production's sake. A good way to think about this is, if y'all remember, in 2020, there was a surplus of milk being produced in the U.S. because consumption had gone down. I assume because the schools were closed. I'm not 100% sure why. But this milk wasn't being bought at the same rate. So rather than, I don't know, give it to people that need it, they dumped like gallons and gallons and gallons of milk from like tanker trucks. Just poured it out, wasting it, because if you can't sell it, it has no value to the capitalist. And that's honestly like a big part of like hunger in this country right now. It's just a distribution issue. We produce enough food to feed everybody, so keep that in mind. We're talking about the dehumanization that capitalism puts on both the worker and the capitalist, actually. The proletarian as a machine to produce surplus value, and the capitalist as a machine to convert surplus value into capital. And then the goal here is to reduce wages to a minimum to keep him industrious, right? They want to pay you as little as possible. Section 4 has an extremely long title. I'm going to read it just for funsies. Circumstances that, independently of the division of surplus value into capital and revenue, determine the amount of accumulation, degree of exploitation of labor power, productivity of labor, growing difference in amount between capital employed and capital consumed, magnitude of capital advanced. What the fuck, Carl? You don't need a subtitle that long. But really what we're talking about is the rate of surplus value depends on the degree of exploitation of labor power. So the more that you're exploited, essentially the less you're getting paid for your labor power, the higher the rate of surplus value that the capitalist is taking from you. Let's see. Here's a quote, if labor could be had without purchase, wages might be dispensed with. Basically slavery. Like that is what the capitalist wants, is to have you work for them and not pay you, or pay you as little as possible. This leads into, well, we had a discussion of how this leads into imperialism, right? Marx, again, didn't really tackle this. This is more what Lenin added to Marx's writings, this discussion of how imperialism happens. But you can see from here how that leads to imperialism when a capitalist can't exploit the labor market as well. So they go overseas to where they can exploit a different labor market. Very cool. And let's see, increased exploitation equals increased productivity. Again, the more you take from the worker, the more the capitalist makes. And then section 5 is the so-called labor fund. And this is a very short one. Basically, we're saying that capital is not fixed, but it fluctuates, right? And then we're talking about how to find what a industry or a city or a nation, what the average wages are. And that is just capital divided by the number of the laboring population equals your average wages. pretty simple with that. But yeah, so that finishes up chapter 24. And we're moving on to chapter 25 next. Cheers, y'all.